Have you ever felt like your entire world was crumbling around you, only to realize later that it was actually being rebuilt from the ground up? Have you experienced moments where everything you once believed to be true suddenly felt like an illusion? If you're nodding your head right now, you might be going through one of the most profound transformations a human being can experience: spiritual awakening. But here's what most people don't tell you about spiritual awakening. It's not all love, light, and unicorns. In fact, it can be one of the most challenging, disorienting, and emotionally turbulent journeys you'll ever embark upon. Dr. Brian Weiss, renowned psychiatrist and pioneer in past life regression therapy, has identified 7 distinct stages that souls typically navigate during this profound transformation. And understanding which stage you're in right now could be the key to not just surviving this process, but thriving through it. The question isn't whether you'll face these challenges. If you're on a path of spiritual growth, you almost certainly will. The real question is, are you prepared to recognize them when they come? Are you ready to understand what your soul is trying to teach you through these intense experiences? Today, we're going to dive deep into these 7 stages, and by the end of this video, you'll not only know exactly where you are in your journey, but you'll also have the tools and understanding to navigate whatever comes next. This isn't just theory. This is practical wisdom that could transform how you see your current struggles and challenges. If you feel called to this message, hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell. Leave a comment saying, "I'm ready to evolve spiritually," so our community knows you're part of this awakening family. And stay until the end, because we'll explore not just what these stages look like, but how to move through them with grace and wisdom. The concept of spiritual awakening has been recognized across cultures and traditions for thousands of years, but it was Dr. Brian Weiss who brought a unique psychological perspective to understanding these profound shifts in consciousness. Through decades of working with thousands of patients in regression therapy, Weiss observed consistent patterns in how souls navigate their awakening process. Drawing inspiration from the pioneering work of Dolores Cannon, another master of consciousness exploration, we see that spiritual awakening isn't a destination. It's a process of remembering who we truly are beyond the limitations of our physical existence. Cannon's extensive research into the subconscious mind revealed that souls choose their earthly experiences as opportunities for growth and evolution, and the awakening process is essentially the soul beginning to remember its true nature and purpose. What makes Weiss's framework particularly powerful is how it acknowledges the very real psychological and emotional challenges that accompany spiritual growth. Unlike purely esoteric approaches that might minimize the human struggle, Weiss's perspective honors both our spiritual nature and our human experience. He recognized that awakening often feels more like a breakdown before it feels like a breakthrough. The 7 stages aren't necessarily linear. You might experience them in different orders, or find yourself cycling through certain stages multiple times. Some people might spend years in one stage, while others move through several stages relatively quickly. What matters isn't the speed of your journey, but the depth of your willingness to grow and transform. Each stage serves a specific purpose in dismantling old patterns, beliefs, and ways of being that no longer serve your highest good. Think of it like renovating a house. Sometimes you have to tear down walls before you can create something beautiful and new. Your soul is doing the same thing with your consciousness, your belief systems, and your entire approach to life. The first stage that many people encounter is what Weiss calls the catalyst stage, a period of significant disruption that essentially forces the beginning of the awakening process. This stage rarely arrives gently. Instead, it often shows up as what might feel like the worst thing that could happen to you: a devastating loss, a health crisis, the end of a significant relationship, a career upheaval, or sometimes a combination of multiple life-changing events. During this stage, people often report feeling like their foundation has been completely shaken. Everything they thought they could count on suddenly feels uncertain. The comfortable routines, relationships, and beliefs that once provided security no longer seem to work. It's as if the universe has conspired to remove everything familiar, leaving them standing in unfamiliar territory with no roadmap. But here's the profound truth about the catalyst stage. What appears to be destruction is actually construction. Your soul has essentially decided that the current structure of your life is too small for who you're becoming, so it begins the process of expansion by clearing away what no longer fits. This stage is like a controlled demolition. It might look chaotic from the outside, but there's actually a deeper intelligence orchestrating the process. Many people in this stage report feeling angry, confused, or even betrayed by life itself. They might find themselves questioning whether there's any meaning or purpose to their suffering. Some people try to fight against the changes, desperately attempting to restore their old life. Others might fall into depression or anxiety as they struggle to make sense of what's happening. The key to navigating the catalyst stage is understanding that resistance creates additional suffering. While the events themselves might be painful, much of our anguish comes from fighting against what's already happening. This stage is asking you to develop a different relationship with uncertainty and change. It's teaching you that your identity and security cannot be built on external circumstances, because those are always subject to change. Share in the comments a moment when you felt the presence of spiritual guidance during a major life disruption, or when you recognized that something that seemed devastating actually led to profound growth. The second stage, the questioning everything phase, emerges as people begin to recover from the initial shock of the catalyst events. In this phase, individuals find themselves examining every aspect of their lives with fresh eyes. Beliefs they've held since childhood suddenly seem questionable. Career paths that once seemed obviously right now feel misaligned. Relationships that once brought comfort might start feeling superficial or draining. This stage can be particularly disorienting because it affects not just your external circumstances, but your entire internal framework for understanding reality. People often report feeling like they're living someone else's life, or that they've been sleepwalking through their existence. They might look back at their previous choices and wonder, who was that person? Why did I think those things were important? The questioning everything phase is essentially your soul's way of conducting a thorough inventory of your life. It's asking, what here is truly authentic to who I am? What have I been doing simply because it was expected of me? What beliefs have I inherited from others without ever examining whether they're actually true for me? This process can feel overwhelming because it seems like nothing is sacred. Everything is up for review. During this stage, many people experience what feels like an identity crisis. The roles, relationships, and pursuits that once defined them no longer feel meaningful. They might find themselves withdrawing from social situations that previously brought them joy, not because they're depressed, but because they're no longer interested in surface-level interactions. They crave depth and authenticity, but those around them might not understand this shift. The challenge of this stage is learning to sit with uncertainty while maintaining stability in your daily life. You're essentially deconstructing your entire worldview while still having to function in the world. This requires developing a different kind of faith, not faith in specific beliefs or outcomes, but faith in the process of discovery itself. One of the most important things to understand about this stage is that questioning everything doesn't mean you have to throw everything away. Some of what you examine might indeed need to be released, but other aspects of your life might simply need to be approached from a more conscious, authentic place. The goal isn't to become someone completely different, but to become more truly yourself. If this message is resonating with your soul, leave a like to help more people find their way to this wisdom. The third stage, the dark night of the soul, represents perhaps the most challenging phase of the awakening process. Named after the mystical text by St. John of the Cross, this stage involves a profound feeling of spiritual emptiness and disconnection. People in this stage often describe feeling abandoned by both the divine and their own sense of purpose. During the dark night of the soul, individuals frequently experience a complete loss of meaning. Activities that once brought joy feel empty. Spiritual practices that previously provided comfort might feel pointless. There's often a sense of being completely alone in the universe, as if all sources of light and guidance have been extinguished. This isn't clinical depression. Although it might share some similar characteristics, it's a spiritual drought that affects every aspect of existence. What makes this stage particularly difficult is that it often comes after people have already begun their spiritual journey. They might have been meditating, reading spiritual books, attending workshops, or engaging in other practices that initially brought them insight and peace. Then suddenly all of that seems to stop working. The practices feel mechanical, the insights feel absent, and there's a sense of having been abandoned by whatever spiritual forces they thought were guiding them. The dark night of the soul serves a crucial function in the awakening process. It strips away any spiritual ego that might have been developing, any sense of being special or advanced because of spiritual experiences or insights. It forces individuals to surrender their attachment to feeling good, feeling enlightened, or feeling connected. In essence, it's asking, will you continue on this path even when there are no rewards, no good feelings, no sense of progress? During this stage, many people report feeling like they're walking through thick fog with no sense of direction. Everything they thought they knew about their spiritual path seems uncertain. Some people abandon their spiritual practices altogether during this time, while others continue mechanically, hoping that something will eventually shift. Both responses are normal and part of the process. The key insight for navigating the dark night of the soul is understanding that this emptiness is actually creating space for something new to emerge. Think of it like the winter season in nature. Everything appears dead and barren, but underneath the surface, essential processes are occurring that will eventually lead to spring's renewal. Your soul is undergoing a similar process of deep renewal that isn't visible from the surface. This stage is also teaching profound lessons about faith and surrender. It's one thing to trust in divine guidance when you can feel it clearly. It's quite another to maintain that trust when you feel completely cut off from any sense of the divine. The dark night of the soul is developing a different kind of spiritual strength, the ability to continue forward, based on deeper knowing rather than emotional confirmation. Send this video to someone who is seeking spiritual clarity or comfort during a difficult time in their journey. As people move through the intensity of the dark night of the soul, they eventually begin to enter what Weiss identifies as the seeking and searching stage. This phase is characterized by an intense hunger for understanding, meaning, and truth. Having experienced the emptiness of the previous stage, individuals now feel compelled to actively search for answers, wisdom, and new ways of understanding reality. During the seeking and searching stage, people often become voracious consumers of spiritual information. They might read dozens of spiritual books, attend workshops and seminars, explore different meditation techniques, investigate various healing modalities, or seek out teachers and mentors. There's often a sense of urgency, as if they're racing to find the missing piece that will make everything make sense. This stage can be both exciting and exhausting. On one hand, there's the thrill of discovery, new concepts that resonate deeply, practices that bring immediate shifts, or teachers who speak directly to their experience. People often report feeling like they're remembering things they've always known but had forgotten. There's a sense of coming home to truth that feels both familiar and revolutionary. On the other hand, the sheer volume of information can become overwhelming. Every new teaching seems to contradict something they learned previously. One teacher emphasizes meditation, another focuses on emotional healing, and yet another advocates for specific dietary changes. The spiritual marketplace can feel like a maze of conflicting advice and competing philosophies. The challenge of this stage is learning to discern what's truly helpful from what's merely interesting. Not every spiritual teaching or practice is meant for every person, and part of the awakening process involves developing the ability to sense what resonates with your individual path. This requires learning to trust your inner guidance, even when it contradicts popular spiritual trends or teachings. During the seeking and searching stage, many people also encounter what could be called spiritual materialism, the tendency to collect spiritual experiences, knowledge, or credentials as a way of building a new identity. They might become attached to being seen as spiritually advanced, or might measure their progress by how many techniques they've mastered, or how many spiritual books they've read. The wisdom that emerges from this stage is understanding that external seeking must eventually give way to internal knowing. While exploring different teachings and practices is valuable, the ultimate answers aren't found in any book, workshop, or teacher. They're found in your direct experience of your own truth. This stage is preparing you to become your own spiritual authority. Write in the comments, "Today I release old patterns and embrace the light of spiritual renewal." The fifth stage, the integration challenge, represents a critical turning point in the awakening process. After the intense seeking of the previous stage, individuals begin to realize that they need to actually apply and integrate what they've learned into their daily lives. This sounds simple, but it's often one of the most difficult aspects of the entire journey. Integration involves taking the insights, experiences, and understandings from your spiritual exploration and finding ways to live them in the practical world. It's one thing to feel profound love and compassion during meditation. It's quite another to maintain that state of being when you're stuck in traffic, dealing with difficult family members, or facing workplace challenges. During the integration challenge, people often discover that there's a significant gap between their spiritual insights and their actual behavior. They might understand intellectually that all beings are connected, but still find themselves judging others. They might have experienced profound states of peace during spiritual practices, but struggle with anxiety in their daily interactions. This gap can be humbling and sometimes frustrating. This stage requires developing what could be called practical spirituality, the ability to bring elevated consciousness into ordinary circumstances. It's about learning to access wisdom and peace, not just during dedicated spiritual practice, but while navigating the full spectrum of human experience. This includes the mundane, the challenging, and the unexpected. One of the key aspects of integration involves examining how spiritual insights apply to relationships. Many people discover that their awakening process has changed them in ways that affect their connections with family, friends, and colleagues. They might find that certain relationships no longer feel aligned with who they're becoming, while other relationships deepen and become more authentic. The integration challenge also involves finding balance between spiritual pursuits and practical responsibilities. Some people swing too far toward spiritual practices and neglect their worldly obligations, while others become so focused on practical matters that they lose connection with their spiritual insights. The goal is finding a sustainable way to honor both aspects of existence. Another crucial element of this stage is learning to maintain spiritual centeredness without becoming spiritually superior. It's easy to fall into the trap of judging others who seem less awakened or conscious. The integration process teaches you that true spiritual development includes humility and the recognition that everyone is on their own perfect path of growth. Leave a like if this message has touched your soul, helping more consciousnesses awaken to the light. As individuals navigate the challenges of integration, they eventually begin to experience what Weiss calls the service and purpose awakening. This stage represents a fundamental shift in motivation, from seeking spiritual experiences for personal growth to understanding how to use those experiences in service of something larger than themselves. During this stage, people often report a growing sense of responsibility for contributing to the healing and elevation of others. They begin to see their own awakening not as an individual achievement, but as part of a larger collective transformation. There's often a growing awareness that their personal healing and growth has ripple effects that extend far beyond their individual life. The service and purpose awakening can manifest in many different ways. Some people feel called to formal healing or teaching roles, becoming therapists, spiritual teachers, energy healers, or coaches. Others find ways to bring their spiritual insights into existing careers or relationships. Still others discover that their primary service is simply maintaining a high vibration and being a stable presence for others who are going through their own awakening process. What's important to understand about this stage is that service doesn't necessarily mean dramatic action or grand gestures. Sometimes the most profound service is offering genuine compassion to a struggling friend, maintaining peace during family conflicts, or simply being fully present with whatever circumstances arise. The ego might want service to look impressive, but the soul understands that authentic service often appears quite ordinary from the outside. This stage also involves developing what could be called spiritual discernment, the ability to sense when, how, and with whom to share spiritual insights. Not everyone is ready to hear about awakening experiences, and learning to share wisdom skillfully requires sensitivity and timing. Sometimes, the most loving thing you can do is simply hold space for others without trying to fix or teach them. The service and purpose awakening also brings clarity about your unique gifts and how they're meant to be expressed in the world. Each person's awakening process reveals specific talents, perspectives, and capacities that are meant to contribute to the collective healing and evolution. This isn't about comparing your gifts to others, or trying to develop gifts that aren't naturally yours. It's about recognizing and honoring what you're uniquely equipped to offer. During this stage, many people experience a natural magnetism that draws others who are seeking guidance or support. This isn't something they try to create. It simply happens as a result of their own authenticity and stability. People sense that they've found someone who has navigated the awakening process with wisdom and can offer genuine understanding. Comment: I align with purposes of good and move forward firmly in my journey of elevation. The seventh and final stage in Weiss's framework is the embodied wisdom phase, a state where spiritual insights become so integrated into daily life that there's no longer a separation between spiritual practice and ordinary existence. People in this stage don't need to work on being spiritual. They simply are expressing their authentic nature in every moment. In the embodied wisdom phase, individuals have developed what could be called spiritual maturity. They've moved beyond the need to have constant spiritual experiences or to prove their awakening to themselves or others. Their spiritual understanding has become like breathing, natural, effortless, and essential to their being. They no longer seek extraordinary states of consciousness because they've learned to recognize the sacred in the ordinary. People in this stage often display a quality of presence that others find deeply peaceful. They've developed the ability to remain centered, regardless of external circumstances. This doesn't mean they don't experience the full range of human emotions. They do. But they've learned to experience these emotions without being overwhelmed or controlled by them. They understand that emotions are temporary experiences, not permanent identities. The embodied wisdom phase is characterized by what could be called effortless compassion. These individuals don't have to try to be loving or understanding. It flows naturally from their being. They've realized that separation is an illusion, so caring for others is simply an extension of caring for themselves. They offer support and guidance not from a place of spiritual superiority, but from genuine recognition of shared humanity. During this stage, people often become what Dolores Cannon would call backdrop people, souls who incarnated specifically to hold steady energy during times of planetary transformation. They might not be visible spiritual teachers or healers, but their presence creates stability and peace that supports others' awakening processes. They understand that sometimes the most powerful service is simply being themselves fully. The embodied wisdom phase doesn't mean the end of growth or learning. People in this stage continue to evolve and expand, but from a place of curiosity rather than need. They're no longer seeking to fix themselves or achieve some ideal spiritual state. Instead, they're exploring the endless depths of consciousness from a foundation of acceptance and love. One of the most beautiful aspects of this stage is the development of what could be called spiritual humor, having taken themselves and their spiritual journey very seriously. During earlier stages, people often develop the ability to hold their experiences lightly. They can laugh at their previous spiritual dramas and maintain perspective about the relative importance of various experiences. Individuals in this phase also tend to become bridges between different worlds. They can communicate with both highly spiritually oriented people and those who have no interest in spirituality at all. They've learned to meet people where they are without compromising their own truth. They can discuss mundane topics with genuine interest while also being available for deeper conversations when appropriate. Right. I accept this spiritual guidance and move forward with courage and faith. As we reach the end of our exploration of these 7 challenging stages of spiritual awakening, it's important to recognize that understanding where you are in this process isn't about judging your progress or rushing to reach the final stage. Each stage has its own gifts, lessons, and purposes. Some of the most profound growth happens in the most challenging stages, and sometimes moving backwards through stages is part of the overall forward movement. The beauty of Dr. Brian Weiss's framework is that it normalizes the difficulties of spiritual growth. Too often, spiritual awakening is presented as a blissful journey of increasing peace and joy. While those experiences are certainly part of the process, the full journey includes periods of confusion, emptiness, seeking, integration challenges, and the ongoing work of embodying wisdom in practical life. If you're currently in the catalyst stage, remember that what appears to be destruction is actually creation. Your soul is making space for something more authentic and aligned. If you're in the questioning everything phase, trust that this thorough examination is leading you toward truth. If you're experiencing the dark night of the soul, know that this emptiness is preparing you for fullness in ways you can't yet imagine. For those in the seeking and searching stage, remember that the ultimate answers lie within you. Use external teachings as pointers toward your own direct experience. If you're facing the integration challenge, be patient with yourself as you learn to live your insights. If you're experiencing the service and purpose awakening, trust that your unique gifts are needed exactly as they are. And if you're in the embodied wisdom phase, continue to trust the natural unfolding while remaining available to support others who are navigating earlier stages of their journey. Perhaps most importantly, remember that this journey isn't one you have to navigate alone. Throughout history, countless souls have walked this path of awakening. The challenges you're facing have been faced by others before you, and the wisdom you're developing will serve not only your own evolution, but the awakening of many others. Your spiritual awakening is both a deeply personal journey and a collective service. As you heal old wounds, release limiting beliefs, and embody more of your authentic truth, you create permission and space for others to do the same. Your courage to face the challenges of awakening contributes to the overall elevation of human consciousness. Whatever stage you're in right now, you're exactly where you need to be. Trust the process, be gentle with yourself, and remember that every stage is temporary. The challenges you're facing today are developing capacities in you that you'll use to serve others tomorrow. Your awakening matters not just for you, but for the entire web of consciousness of which we're all part. The path of spiritual awakening is simultaneously the most challenging and the most rewarding journey a soul can undertake. It asks everything of you while giving you everything in return. It breaks you down so thoroughly that you discover you were never breakable to begin with. It shows you that what you thought was solid was actually fluid, and what you thought was separate was actually one. Take a moment now to reflect on your own journey. Which stage resonates most strongly with your current experience? What challenges have you already navigated, and what gifts have emerged from those difficulties? How has your understanding of spirituality itself evolved as you've moved through your awakening process? Remember that awakening isn't a destination, but an ongoing process of returning to your true nature. Each stage prepares you for the next, and each challenge develops capacities that serve not only your